It's another beautiful Tuesday morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Parenting Tuesday on Jam 316. My name is James Okumu. So glad you could take the time to hook up with us today as we have yet another conversation that I believe will enrich us in terms of our parenting. And today we'll be focusing on children and education. Children are back to school. You know, the other day, so there was this picture of children learning under a tree. And I'm thinking, under a tree, almost 60 years after independence, under a tree. What is wrong with us? And then I saw this report of how Rwanda had built 22,000 schools. And I thought, as parents, we would say something about it. But we did not. And I kept wondering, what's wrong with us? Are we okay with our children going to school under trees? Almost 60 years after independence? Something is wrong somewhere. I don't know if it's just me, but something is wrong somewhere. How can that be okay? I saw another picture of a classroom, one of the schools in the rural areas, a classroom, and trees were growing in the class. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with us? We want to have a serious discussion today as we talk about the whole issue of going back to school, you know, and what our children are going through, the restrictions and all these things that have been put in place because of the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, what the government has done. What's our role as parents? What about our children? We'll talk about that today. And so even as we get into this discussion, I'm asking you the question, do you have school-going children? What feedback have they given you if they've already reported back to school? You know, for this time, the few days they've been able to go to school, what kind of feedback have you been able to get from them on the whole issue of wearing masks, washing hand sanitization, distancing, learning, all those things, transport? What are they telling you? SMS me some of that feedback on 20316. WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. I have an amazing guest who will be joining us shortly. I will be introducing him to us, in the next short while. So stick with me. We are going to be having a very interesting conversation. A very good morning to you and karibu sana. It is Parenting Tuesday on Jam 316. Before we get into our conversation for today, have you had your cup of gashai?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Oh, Dr. Andia, you've had your cup of gashai?
Yes. Oh, you're not asking me, you're asking.
I'm asking everybody.
Sorry.
I'm asking you, everybody included. The other day when I'd gone to to Shags over Christmas season, somebody said, we'll start calling you Pastor Wagashai. And I thought that is so amazing. But Eden tea is the finest garden tea. Comes to us in various flavors. Eden green tea, Eden purple tea, Eden lemon tea, Eden ginger tea, and you also have Eden premium tea. Eden tea is reminding us in this season to continue working together. Wash your hands with soap and running water, putting on our face masks because we interact out there, and also maintaining interpersonal distance. Let's continue to work together to flatten the COVID-19 curve. If you have not tried Eden tea, get onto the supermarket or to your local kiosk out there. You will find it at affordable prices. Try it out. You will not regret it. It is truly the finest garden tea. So even as we get into this conversation about education, we are joined today in studio via Zoom by Dr. Wandia Njoya. She is a senior lecturer at Daystar University, and she has an amazing blog that you need to check out on YouTube. Look for Maisha Kazini. It's a very, very interesting channel. You need to check it out. She has got some thought-provoking content. Dr. Wandia, it's good to have you on the show again. Karibu sana.
Asante, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year to you too. So let me begin this conversation by what I was saying earlier. I had a mini rant earlier when we began the show. You know, so our children are back to school, and the other day we were seeing pictures of our children, you know, trying to get an education, and they're seated under trees. And I'm thinking, close to 60 years after independence, our children are still learning under trees. And I thought, you know, parents would say something because these are our kids. When you look at the fact that, you know, a nation like Rwanda was able to put up 22,000 classrooms in this season. I don't know what you think about or what goes through your mind when you see a picture like that. And it seems like parents are okay with it.
I really don't know what to say. In fact, when I was coming, I was like, will I even have really anything substantial to give the parents.
Yes.
This was coming, let me just say.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that we are here. The problem is the foundation of our education system.
Okay.
We do not have a philosophy. We do not care for our children. And we don't have the African philosophy of caring for all children as our children.
Oh.
So what happened was that most of the parents who could afford a better school, they just switched off and said, as long as my kid is going to school X, I'm fine. It doesn't matter where other kids are going. So now all that has come back to haunt us. And so we are seeing the children learning under trees. I think we are also a traumatized generation of parents.
What do you mean by that?
I think we've been detached from our soul and our ability to care.
Oh.
So we feel that our job is just to take our children to school, let the school tell us what to do. And that has been translated also into the way education is run. And that was why 2 years ago I was saying there's too much centralization of the education system. Teachers should have more say, and parents should have more say in the schools, because then the schools which didn't even have as much resources as the others could have made decisions. The head teachers could have made decisions, the teachers could have made decisions, could have consulted the parents and people in the local area, and then come up with innovative ways to handle the return to school. But because everything was being issued from Jogoo House, then it paralyzed everybody, and we all decided to behave as if manna would come from heaven and everything would sort it out. But it didn't. Yeah. So we need a return to the basics. All of us. It's not even our children. It's us.
It's us, yeah.
The parents, the adults.
I like that, because this show is focusing on parents. That's why we call it Parenting Tuesday. But I'm just wondering, looking at this whole situation, do parents have a say where this situation is concerned? And if they do, why is it that we feel like we can't say anything? For me, that picture is two pictures are embedded in my mind in this season. The picture of children sitting under a tree trying to get an education. Even the desks are not there, and there was a story about desks a couple of months ago. And then the other picture is the picture of trees and vegetation growing in a classroom, because it's been too long since somebody stepped into that environment, and so vegetation has taken over. And so it almost seems like as parents we are helpless. So the question is, do we have a voice? And if we do, why do we feel so helpless?
I think we are disempowered. Like one of the things I kept saying during the CPC debate was that allow us to say something. All of us. Allow the parents, allow the teachers, allow the children to have a say about what is happening. But what happened was that our voices were muffled. We were told that we are not the experts. And then, so we checked out. The other thing that has happened to education is that we have been, there has been a kind of impression that it is so technical. Only the experts and the educationists and the bureaucrats in Jogoo House have a right to say something, because they are the ones who know. So because of all that environment made people just say, okay, the government knows what it's doing. In fact, I was told so many times, let the government do its job. But now you can see they're not doing their job. We have to these are our children and this is our country. We have to decide as parents to become citizens. We can't keep relating to the school as just, I'm the one who gave birth and I'm the one who feeds the children. We also have to be citizens and ask, what is an education system for? What do we want it to do for us? Then organize in your churches, in your chamas, have the conversation, so that we can now start escalating what we want to the people who have been elected. But we should not have a tyranny of experts. The experts need to hear from us because we are the ones who live in the education system. So we have to care. But the fundamental question which Kenyans have not answered, which I will keep saying we must answer, is why do we go to school? If it's for jobs, we are going to feel this helplessness because we are basically saying our children are being educated for somebody else. For the employer. So we have to let go of that logic and say our children are being educated to be Kenyans and to be good people. And then what does that education require? Then we are able to answer that question. But as long as we are saying jobs, market, I don't know what, then we are letting our children, we are giving our children to the market, basically. Yeah, and that's what disempowers us because since we have no control of the market, then what do we say about the children's education?
You feel like...
But if we all know what a good adult is, then we have a say on what education is.
Do you feel like our education system right now is in a crisis?
Yeah. It's been a crisis since before independence. We never answered that question.
Since before independence?
Since before independence. We've never answered the question, why do we go to school? What happened? And in a sense, I blame us, the teachers, for not really paying attention. We were thinking of it as jobs. But what happened at independence is that we just continued trying to make the colonial system work. So as long as people are getting degrees and going to government jobs, and getting good jobs and becoming rich, we never saw a problem with the system. But the fundamentals were never really sorted out. And I think one of the things we didn't do was to create innovative teachers, train innovative teachers and allow them to be innovative. And then use whatever lessons they are learning to improve the system. But what we did was we stuck with this centralized system where all the decisions are being made from Nairobi with no idea of what is happening at the local areas, no voice for the teachers to try new things and to implement new things. So now here we are. We are completely disempowered.
Looking at last year, greater part of last year, children were at home. And some of them were able to go through some online classes and get their education online. Some of them were not. And now our children are back to school, but the environment is still not what we would have desired for it to be. When you look at last year and this year, what comparisons can you make? And is it better now that they are going to school, even though we still have issues that we need to talk about and solve? Or was it better when they were at home? Or neither?
It's neither. It's apples and oranges. The problem of being at home is a separate problem from the problem of coming to school and finding this mess. Personally, what I would have done, although I'm not, by the way, I'm not an expert, I'm just a concerned teacher. What I would have done is, once the pandemic comes, suspend, first of all, CBC. Suspend it because it's new, the teachers are not accustomed to it. Just suspend it, and then the other thing is look at the curriculum and see how can it be I don't know, it needed more creativity into the curriculum. Give activities that are not teacher-centered, like homework. You see, the problem with homework is that it needs to be marked. You give activities that are less teacher-centered. But you see, that requires innovation from the teachers, which we have not been allowing. So, for example, if you're teaching science, teachers can come up with activities for students to, plant something, or, do those experiments at home. Or, there are things that teachers can imagine because they know this, the kids and the students. So make the curriculum less teacher-centric and exam-centric, and then now, and in a way that doesn't require a lot of textbooks and those things. Textbooks is also another problem. So that would have lightened the work of everybody. And as that happens, now start thinking about what do we need to do to the facilities so that we are prepared when the kids come back. That's what I would have done.
Okay.
But I think, first of all, the exam orientation, control from Jogao House, all those things have made us not able to deal with circumstances that are a surprise. Because we are so used to one system that when a situation comes that we are not familiar with, it just messes us up and confuses us.
Okay.
But if we had been more flexible from before the pandemic, then it would have been easier. The other thing I kept saying, sorry to say, before the pandemic was libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, do we still have libraries today?
There are none. In fact, I was saying, instead of having an expensive school rollout, help counties build libraries. And what would have happened during the pandemic is that kids would just be borrowing books. They borrow books or they return. Another thing people could have done, counties without actual libraries. You just circulate the books and tell families to rotate the books. So a family has a book for 2 weeks, then they send it to the next family, and then like that. Just get the books out there, so that the kids are reading and are active, intellectually active during the pandemic. But you see, all these are creative solutions, and the goal of the system is to crush creativity. So we can't get solutions into the system like that.
Okay. So shortly, when we resume the conversation, I'll want us to look at the whole situation that we are facing right now, because one of the things we agree on is that our institutions are not equipped well to deal with the situation of children going back to school, whether it is matters social distancing or hygiene and all that. So what kind of effects are we likely to see on our teachers, our students, and even on us parents, even as our children have gone back to school? It's 21 minutes after 8. We are talking matters going back to school this year with what we are still facing, the COVID-19 pandemic, and our role as parents. If you have a question for us today, feel free to send it in right now on 20316 for SMS. WhatsApp 0786 316 316. It is Parenting Tuesday. My name is James Okumu. This morning we are hanging out with Dr. Wandia Njoya, senior lecturer from Daystar University. We are looking into the situation of back to school. Our children have resumed physical classes, but how is that working out for them, and what is the way forward? Your comments and your questions coming in via SMS on 20316, WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. This one is from Wamboi in Uthiru. You say, I live in a village in Uthiru and I have decided to invest in laptops and bundles and have my children do online classes. Imagine the primary school here has classes of 90 to over 100 children because there are no enough teachers and they could not turn away anyone. The chief here in the village is threatening to prosecute parents whose children are at home. But there's no way I can take my kids to the school. It is worse now than before. With online, they are comfortable and get individualized lessons with no risk of COVID. I don't know what you think about that comment, Dr. Wandia.
Since I'm speaking to Christians,
yes,
can we ask our pastors to say something about the threatening language that is used? Because nobody should be threatened to go to school, because actually the education is the opposite of violence.
Yeah.
We get educated so that we don't have to use violence, so that we make people understand what they need to do. And we give them the options and teach them how to think about it. So to issue threats is a contradiction to education.
Very true.
So I think that is just so sad, and I hope that our church leaders who can hear us can just say something about that, because you're not supposed to threaten anyone about going to school.
Yeah. Do you see more? Yeah. Do you see more of these situations arising where parents decide to take control of their children's education and they make decisions because what is being offered is not conducive for the situation and not conducive for their children?
I mean, I sympathize with the parent, and I think right now parents have to just go with their guts, which is what she has done.
Yeah.
You just have to go with your guts. Look at, is my child's health, because we are being put in a very bad situation where our children's health is, we have to balance it with their education.
Yeah.
So that's a really uncomfortable decision to make. So I would say parents go with their guts and be aware of why they are making that decision, because you don't want to feel guilty later on and ask, did I do the right thing? You know, be sure that from what you're seeing, this is the best thing you could do under the circumstances. And God bless you, go with it, and then we see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier on, I was talking about the situation on the ground, even from the SMS that Wambui has sent in. I mean, all of us agree when we look at public schools, man, they've been stretched, they've been overstretched to their limits, and it is hard. So what kind of effects will we see upon the teachers and the students and the education system and the parents because of them not having what they need to actually contain the situation?
Of course, gosh. You know, also the other thing, you can't teach well when there's anxiety. So that will be the main thing, because teachers will be anxious about their own health.
Yes.
Especially because they are the older ones, so probably the risks are more for them. And then the kids will be anxious because they've probably been told you must, both by the parents and by the teachers, you must not be near each other.
Yeah.
Be careful. And you know, kids, they are not the way they're generally spontaneous.
Yes.
So for them to have to think, oh, I cannot get too close, is not, you know, it will disturb them. Then also they're thinking, my parents are worried about me. So that's why the threats were the last thing that were needed in such a situation. And I don't know, I wish they had done something like, you know, rotation, you know, have some kids come for 1 week, some kids come the next week, so that they're not all together.
Yeah.
But I think this will be a very anxious time for everyone. And in education, you can't educate when people are anxious.
In fact, I'm trying to look at that whole situation, the anxiety and just everything that's happening, and the fact that these children were home for almost a year. Now, talking about the children in the public schools, you know, private schools that are still ongoing had some special things in place. But for the public schools, for the most part, nothing much was happening when the children were at home. So just trying to catch up and get them up to speed and then pick up from there and then move on. I'm just wondering, what will the teachers have to, what are the teachers facing? What do they have to do to make this thing work?
And that's why I was saying the problem also is our approach to curriculum. You know, when we look at curriculum and syllabus and this must be finished by this time, and if, you know, I think that's also part of the anxiety. And that's why I was saying we need an education system that is more flexible when it comes to curriculum and how it's taught, so that you're not saying by this year somebody must have covered this. In fact, that idea, I never understand it.
Yeah.
Because knowledge is not going away. It's not going away. So you can be more flexible with what you can teach at a certain point. You can delay some things. You can decide, I'm going to do the essentials. And those are things which needed the voice of the teacher.
Okay.
So that they can tell you, this one, we can, you know, we don't have to teach it in such detail at this time. But because we've been told everything comes from the experts in Nairobi, then we have no say about how we work with the curriculum. And that's why the public school teachers are in such a big problem, because actually the private schools have more decision making. That's the difference.
Yeah.
They can make decisions.
Very true.
But the public schools have to wait for word from Nairobi. Otherwise, you know, you don't know whether you'll be paid, you don't know whether you know. So we need a more flexible education system. We need leadership that understands what education is, and not see education as administration, because that's the current approach. The current approach is a syllabus cover. The minister has given, the CS has given orders, implement. So it's a very bureaucratic administrative approach, and what we need is leadership.
Okay. Looking at our class 8s, our form 4s, because they are preparing for exams, and that also comes with a lot of pressure added on to the anxiety that we are all going through in this season. Is this likely to affect how they do the exams and how they perform? And from that perspective, how can parents help their children who are candidates this year?
First, assure them that your love is not dependent on exam results. I think for me, that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
That the exam results don't say anything about them. Then you say, we are all going through this situation together. It's not ideal, but just do the best that you can.
Yeah.
Because actually, when we are going to be looking back at this 10 years from now, we'll see actually we came out of it. So just assure your child that your love for your child is not dependent on the exam results that they get. As for at the national level, I really don't know what to say, because the exam system is very cutthroat, sorry to say. Too much is dependent on it. Too much is decided on exam results. So this was what was supposed to have been dealt with earlier. Yeah. So yeah, I am honestly speechless, because I predicted these things would happen.
Wow.
I kept saying we needed to open up the school system so that exams are more flexible. People can do them at any time. There are other ways to get accreditation to advance in whatever you want to do. That's what I was saying we needed, not a new syllabus.
Okay. Looking at, I know we've basically been talking about primary school education, secondary school education. I'm just wondering, how has this affected education in our colleges and our universities?
I'm not sure what the public education system has been. Some public universities were saying that they're offering online classes. I know it never happened. Some did offer online classes. The private universities also, like where I am, we offered classes online.
Okay.
So the classes went on. But with the adult learners, it's kind of different. You're dealing with different dynamics. Students can be a bit more independent. They can run their own, they can do the work without parental supervision. So it's easier at college level. And already there were online classes even before the pandemic. So it's easier with adults, but with children, it's a whole other ball game.
Okay. It's interesting you say that, because I've been thinking about the whole online thing, because it seems like there are certain students who the online thing has worked for them. I mean, I was having a conversation with my son. My second-born son is in grade 11, and I was asking him, so when it's time to go back to school and there's an option whether you go physically or you do online, which one would you want to do? And he was telling me, I'd do online. Maybe go to school one day a week, but the rest of the days I just stay home and I do online, because of the way he's wired. He's the kind of guy, he knows what he wants. He's disciplined, but not all children are disciplined. Others will, So I from your perspective as somebody who's very passionate about education, is that an option that should be considered, for those who are in high school, that you can either have online or maybe a mixed breed of both online and physical classes?
Yeah, in fact, they were supposed to have done everything. Have people come in on different days, have online classes, do more assignments at home, stop this homework by textbook, give activities instead. Just change the way education is done so that you minimize the amount of interaction, physical interaction, and still the kids are able to do more work. That's what we needed.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think eventually blending is the way to go. But I think also eventually we can't continue with the system the way it is. It's not sustainable. In fact, even during colonial times, if you look at what was happening, by the way, even the Africans were saying that the schools are so badly equipped, there were no teachers. You know,
the same thing we keep
the
saying
schools
today.
for Africans.
The same thing. The same things we are saying today.
The same thing. The same thing. And the colonial government had decided the money they have is for the elite schools for Europeans.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing that is happening. That's why I'm saying we, the adults, we need to decide if we want equality in education and then start to say, how do we get it?
In fact, it's good.
This is a colonial system that we have.
It's good you've brought that up, because I would want us to get into that discussion in the next short while, because what then is the way forward? You know, when we began this conversation, I'll take you back to some things you said. You said, you know, the crisis has been there since before independence. You know, it's almost like the foundation is not right, so it doesn't matter how much we try and build on it. There are always cracks all over the place. So what's the way forward from the perspective of a parent? Because for me, the thing that is frustrating me the most is parents have no voice, and we are behaving like we are helpless. You know, we don't, as long as they've gone to school, a good number of parents are not concerned about even what they're being taught. Bora yeye alienda na alirudi jioni, mtoto wangu yuko shule, and we were content with that. How do we change that situation, and what's the way forward? Because I think we are at a pivotal point where we have to ask critical questions. What are those questions we need to ask, and how do we make it better? That's coming up in the next short while, giving you the opportunity to ask questions, be a part of this conversation. Kama wewe ni mwalimu na unasikia hii conversation, ask questions. Mzazi, ask questions. I've been saying this week, and I'll say it again today. One of the things I find interesting about us today is we don't ask questions. We are so afraid to ask questions. One time my son got into trouble because he was asking too many questions. This son that I'm talking about, he asks questions. And so one day I was summoned to the school, and the teacher was telling me, your son is very rude. And I'm thinking, why is he rude? What did he do? It's because he's asking questions, and he has a lot of why questions. Why are we not allowed to have long hair in school? Those are the kind of questions my son asks, and sometimes they get into trouble. But he asks questions and he gets answers. And so I want to encourage us to develop that culture, as parents especially, to ask questions. Ask our leaders questions. Why? Why are our children learning under trees? What happened to the desks that we were promised? What happened to the laptops? When we ask these questions, we put our leaders to task, and things will begin to change. So I'm putting you to task today. Parent, ask questions. 20316 SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. It is Parenting Tuesday. We are talking about education, back to school. Our children are back to school. But the environment and the situation is not good. It's not what we expected. And so we are asking ourselves some critical questions. In studio with us today, Dr. Wandia, senior lecturer at Daystar University, helping us to gain some perspective on this whole issue. Your questions and your thoughts, 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. There's a thought here. Says your discussion with Dr. Wandia is just another way of how the government is being hijacked to kill the public sector. Do you know that right now it is more expensive to take your child to PP1 than to first year in a public university? Christians need to pray because they may not escape this. That's another thing that sometimes gets me to a place where I feel like pulling out my hairs, because sometimes I find that sometimes as Christians, now addressing Christians, you know, we want to pray only and not engage and not have serious conversations and not confront and not do anything about it. We just want to pray and believe that God will sort it out, and we are just people of faith, but we don't say anything. We are not present. You know, we don't, our faith doesn't have the works to support what we are saying we are believing in. I don't know what your thoughts are concerning this comment, Dr. Wandia, before we talk about solutions.
Yeah, I think prayer is not enough. We also have to think, get together and think what we can do, and then also make demands of the government. But just as you are talking, I was thinking, churches have spaces.
Yeah.
They have places. Can they help the schools with space? For at least for this time, because that is a way that they could minister to the public.
Yes.
But also, I think our problem is we don't have and this one is what I've been saying, we need a theology of the public. We talk so much about being Christian, about this very closed community.
Yeah.
But what was Jesus doing with the public? Those who believed and didn't believe. The sun shines on everybody.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible says. It's not just only on believers. So we also need to think of a theology of the public. How does God call us to take care of the public, whether they are believers or not?
Okay. So what's the way forward? What are we doomed to be in this situation until whatever happens, or is there light at the end of the tunnel? What kind of solutions can we come up with, especially from the perspective of parents?
I think first, parents, actually the problem is us. It's our generation.
Okay.
We, like you said, when you are talking about not asking questions, that's our problem. Our generation was taught not to ask questions,
yes,
especially the why. We were never allowed to ask, why is this thing happening? And so we have been disempowered from asking questions. So maybe I could encourage them to look at the story of doubting Thomas in the Bible. Because when Thomas said, I'm not believing until I see Jesus myself and I touch his side, Jesus came. Jesus didn't say, no, I'm not coming. Why isn't he believing? He actually came and said, touch here so that you believe. Okay, there were those who believed without touching, but Jesus ministered even to those who doubted.
Yeah.
So we need to stop feeling that doubting is wrong. We need to ask questions about our education system. And then I think parents also need to change their idea about education. Education is not for jobs. It's to equip your children to get through life. So I would say, especially, in general, buy your kids books. If you can't afford books, tell them stories. Keep telling them stories about life. Because those are the stories that will keep them after the school system. Because stories are about decision making. It's not just about knowledge.
Yes.
It's teaching your child decision making. How did people make decisions long ago? Under what circumstances? Keep telling your child your stories. Don't just let them be told stories only by the school system, because that's what will help them, regardless of whether they do well in exams. After school, that is what is going to carry them through, because they'll remember, this is how I make decisions, because this is how others before me made decisions. So stories, tell them stories, buy books, form tamas if you can, exchange books, so that the kids are active and they're not feeling that they are disadvantaged because of COVID. So those are the two things I would say, that we need to change the way we think about education. And then we also have to ask questions. And then the other thing is, people need not worry. This is school. This is school. Your kid will grow. Your kid will grow and will soon be out of this system. So don't worry too much, because the worry might make your child also be anxious.
Okay.
So just be confident, trust in God, give your child the best, and tell your child, we're going to go through this and we'll come out at the end. But let's also be citizens.
Yes.
And care for what happens outside our homes and outside the church, and do something about it.
Okay. Something I've seen that seems to be gaining a bit of momentum in our public schools is I'm seeing all students are coming together, forming WhatsApp groups, and looking at their former school and chipping in and seeing where they can help. I'm part of a group of our former primary school, my former high school. I'm part of a WhatsApp group. You know, people are contributing. People are buying desks. People are contributing and painting the school. I'm just wondering, is that a possible solution, or is that more of a band-aid from your perspective?
That's a band-aid. And those groups call the MP. They say, we are this group, all girls of A, B, C, D.
Yes.
We want to have a meeting with the MP at this place. He better come. He better be there. And then you use social media.
Yes.
And campaign as a group. So it's not just solution of band-aid to the school. I'm not saying don't do the band-aid, but that is not as effective as organizing politically as parents. You organize, all of you parents, and then you tell the MP or the MCA, we are having a meeting here, you come and tell us.
What is happening
You
to
explain where the money is going, why our schools are suffering. And if you don't, we will actively campaign against you in the next election. Because if you have your 500 parents,
yes,
we all, or even if each of you has only 5 friends on Facebook, that's 500 times 5 who you will reach. And then those 2,500 will reach another like that times 5, like that. So we need to hold our politicians accountable. They can't be running around the country dancing about things that are not relevant to our children.
Very true.
It's moral.
Wow. Well, our time is almost up, Dr. Wandia. It's always a blessing to host you. What would your parting shot be for us today?
I want to say, I want to bless the children first. Oh, yeah, the children, they will get through this. But I want to tell us parents, it's not too late. We need to weep. We need to weep for what has happened to us. We need to repent. And we need to ask God, how do we intervene in this generation?
Yes.
Because we are not the ones of the freedom fighters of Lancaster House. That's our parents' generation. What is our generation's call today? What are we going to do? And we can't keep talking about independence. We have to say we want services for our children, and that is our legacy to the next generation. So I would call on parents, please just educate yourself, because the kids know they don't know, but do us we still need to go to school and learn to care again. It was taken out of us through the 80s and 90s, but we can go back to that. Learn to care again and ask the right questions. And if you're shy, get a fellowship and start asking the questions so that the system can change. Let's not be the generation that was skipped over, because I have a feeling that is what is going to happen to us.
Wow.
Kenya's history in 100 years will not see us if we don't do something now.
That's a heavy statement right there. Dr. Wandia, thank you. It's always a blessing to host you. Asante sana for the conversation. May God bless you.
God bless you too.
Awesome. There's something Dr. Wandia has said there that I think is thought-provoking, and we need to think about them. I'm sure you belong to a WhatsApp group of your former school. I am sure. Yeah, 1 or 2. Your primary and your secondary, or even your campus. And I see a lot of activity. Recently in our WhatsApp group for our school, former school, Jamhuri High School, one of our former teachers died, and people came together and people raised money to clear the hospital bill and to help with the funeral and all that. And I'm just thinking, what if we rally up together like that, just the way Dr. Ari has told us today, and we summon the leaders? We are having a meeting. Yeah, why is this happening in this school? Why is this school not painted? Why don't we have enough desks? Why is there not this and this and this? I'm sure. Can you imagine what would happen in the education sector in this country if all these WhatsApp groups did that? Whether this is the right time to do it, when people have begun campaigning for next year, to awake pressure so that our children can get the services that they deserve, and only you and I can be able to do it. Well, that's all the time we have for this conversation for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Wazazi, tuanze kuuliza maswali. Let's not be afraid to ask questions. Let's ask why. Let's ask when. Let us ask who is responsible. Where does the buck stop? What is my responsibility in this whole issue and in this equation? What are the possible solutions? Because unless we ask questions, then we will remain where we are and we will keep on complaining and never see ourselves as part of the solution. The key is in our hands.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.